Hello and welcome to another episode of Top 5. And today's episode of Top 5, we will continue the journey back in time. And we would like to bring you 20 years ago when the new millennium hit. It was a funny time as many thought the world would end then, and rumors about Y2K, especially since computer was starting to take over the world. People weren't sure how the resetting of the year would happen, and I actually have heard stories of people bringing manual paper forms and files home just to ensure that, just in case the computer cocks up, well, they still have some backups and they can still continue working. So 2000 was also considered a period, a resurgence phase for board games, as some titles that we consider today essential and modern classic actually came out during that time period. So I did a bit of research, and 12 games in the current BGG top 100 are from the year 2000s, compared to 2 from the 90s, 1 from the 1800 for some reason, and 85 in the 2010s. So that actually tells you that there are still a lot of games from the 2010, the 2000 period that it's popular today. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest for today. So continuing on the series, you have seen that 3 of us remain the same, but we have one new guest today. So our new guest, let me introduce him first. He's the co-founder of Capital Game Studios and Mercat Game, and they're having a new game coming out, which is called Checkout, which you should check out when it hits the store soon. And of course, he's also the designer of a popular financial literacy game, Wongamania Debtzilla. So we have Zio. Yep, and other than Zio, I'm sure Geoffrey is no stranger to all of you. You have been seeing him every episode of Top 5 now. And of course, we have Matthew, who is our 8-time Game Jam participant. And he's back continuing the timeline with us into the year 2000 to 2009. So without further ado, let's go straight into year 2000. And for year 2000, I will kick off. And my first game entry for year 2000 is a game which I consider modern classic for tile placement or tile laying. And the game is Carcassonne. Yep, so I'm sure Carcassonne, I've mentioned this game before in a previous top 5 video, which is games or upgrades to games that Singaporeans should play. It's a tile placement game which every player draw and place a tile on kind of like the playing area. So the whole game itself is actually made out of various cardboard tiles, and with that you're trying to build a landscape or essentially a southern French landscape, because that's where the city or the town of Carcassonne is. So other than just playing the tile, you get to actually choose to put a meeple on the playing field, and you can actually choose for it to either be a knight in a city, or a robber on the road, or a monk in kind of like the monastery or the cloister, or just a farmer on the grass. So you get to actually, there are many roles the meeple can play, and of course with that, that's how you score points. And with that, you actually try to get the most points to be the kind of like the best player, or the best builder of the town of Carcassonne. So to me, Carcassonne is quite an important game in terms of tile placement, because to me it was one of my first few encounters after Saboteur to understand that other than you placing tile to reach a destination, you can also place tile and have various effects happening on the tile at the same time when it's being played. And with it, because of the way meeples will be played, you are also kind of competing in terms of area control, because if you are going to be placing a tile that has a city within, or you're going to place a tile where you want to be a farmer within, and there's actually another farmer within, you may have some issues there. Yeah, so the game that I would recommend for year 2000 is Carcassonne. So next we have Zio to share his game from year 2000.
So my entry is Citadel. So Citadel is, I guess, one of the very early I would say, more sophisticated social deduction game, where you have a bunch of nobles with different powers, variable character powers, and then you have to wrestle to build castles, towns, and marketplace, all these kind of things. Okay, then each person has a power, and then at the end of every round, you will rotate. And after the rotation, you get to change a role based on whatever the strategic value. So the players who accumulate a certain number of assets and properties, they'll win the game. So that is basically Citadel. And I guess why Citadel is so memorable at that point of time is because I guess during that period of time, there is not a lot of games, Euro games, other than like Saboteur at that point of time. And then my group didn't catch on to Catan for some reason. So we literally played Citadel for the next 3 to 4 years, almost week after week. Then we got the expansion, all these kind of things. So I think we only got bored of it after when the people get married. People got, boyfriend, girlfriends, then they got occupied with setting up family. Then when the group broke apart, so my Citadel group also splintered apart. So it is one of the games that I guess the replay value comes not from the mechanics. It comes from the interaction between the different groups of people, and you can keep on replay, and even though we didn't get a lot of expansion, but I guess we never get tired of it at that point of time. So that is Citadel.
All right. Citadel actually also holds a special memory in my heart because that was the first card game that my then fiance bought for me. Actually, talking about year 2000, I want to give a quick shout out to a game that is no longer in print, and that game is actually a collectible card game or a trading card game. It's Raw Deal. So most of your viewers out there, you may know it as the wrestling card game. Yeah, to me, why it holds a special memory in my heart is because this is a game where when I was 13 or 14 years old, we actually bought decks, we actually formed decks, and then we actually play. So like what Zio mentioned, introducing Citadel, you have variable player power in the form of superstar ability, and you are trying to wrestle literally in the game and make the other player actually lose his or her deck. So it was a game that I played actually over the years, and then there was a time where I was extremely poor. Me and my friends, no money for entertainment. We actually then brought the game out of retirement and decided to form decks, or we actually lend each other our old superstar cards, and then now we challenge each other to form a good deck to actually.
So what happened to your deck right now? Is it still in your collection or sold already?
Well, it has been sold partially, but bit by bit, to actually fund my current board game hobby. So
I sold my Magic the Gathering with all the dual lands, so a bit angry now when I look at the prices.
I don't think there are still some cards that I hold very dearly. There are some superstar that my friends actually know me and my playstyle for even after many years. Yeah. So I mean, if you were into Raw Deal, the superstar that I was always associated to was Kurt Angle. Yeah. The joke is for my friends, right, is that my turn never ends because I just kept going, because the cards allowed me to keep going, because Kurt Angle just played many actions and he could play face and heal. Well, I think for a tribute section, probably gone too long. So anyway, in the 2000s, shout out to Raw Deal for occupying more than 10 years in my life. Okay, with that, we shall move on to year 2001. So year 2001, the first entry will be from Geoffrey.
Alright, so 2001, my entry is definitely my favorite racing board game of all time. That is a Winner's Circle. I've actually mentioned this game in a different video. Alright, so to summarize the rules, is about players will get to bet on different horses and hope that their horses could win the race. So if they win the race, they will earn the amount of money, alright, based on how many people bet on these horses, so on. So how does it play, right, is every single turn, a player will roll a dice, and this dice will show an icon. The dice is not numbered. Excuse me. Okay, sorry, I restart.
Only just carry on. Number.
Okay, I just say number. Okay. I mean, I restart because the screen is kind of very distracting. Okay. Alright. My 2001 entry is one of my favorite racing game of all time, or racing board game of all time. That is Winner's Circle. I have mentioned this game in a different video, so I would like to summarize what is this game about. So, for this game, players will get to bet on a number of horses and hope that these horses, right, will able to win the race, whether is it bronze, silver, or gold. Okay, you get to earn monetary rewards, right, based on each horse's performance. Okay, so for each player, every turn you get to roll a dice, and these dice consist of different icons, and these icons, right, can actually decide how many steps each individual horses will go according to the ability of the horses. So in a way, this betting element does allow players to strategize, which horses have a higher chance of winning, based on this analysis. So to me, this is a very exciting game. It is almost exciting as a real horse betting race, and the gameplay and the theme fits very well. So I would highly recommend everyone to get a set of Winner's Circle. Unfortunately, I believe it is out of print right now, even though it is republished in the year 2006. But however, there is a Japanese version. Yeah, so for the Japanese version, it's actually called Royal Turf, which is an older title of Winner's Circle. So so if you can't get the English version, I would highly recommend you can still get the Japanese version. Yeah, and it doesn't really matter if the rules are in Japanese, because you can actually download the English rules and still use the Japanese version to do the same rules. Yeah, so it's basically still the same game. Yeah, so that's my 2001 pick, Winner's Circle.
Okay, so for 2001, we're going to stick around for a little longer because we have an entry from Zio.
This game, I think Geoffrey would not like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 201. My next game is Munchkin. Okay, very controversial pick, because everybody will be probably throwing watermelon and rotten tomatoes at me right now. Okay, why Munchkin? Because I guess that is why did I buy the game in the first place? I think I bought one of the first few edition one, whereby the cards is still black and white, because the latest edition of Munchkin, they basically color it. So it's one of the first few with the rule book being very quite bad. So it's basically a D&D simplified game whereby players are supposed to get to level 10, and then they start as humans, and along the way they can change their race into elf, dwarf, halfling. Then they can get class like warriors, wizard, and then you try to open doors. You might find some monsters, you might find some treasures, or you may just kill the monster to get treasures. So in order to level yourself, you need to find treasures or get monsters. So along the way, the fun part is that how the game dynamics is, the interaction part is that you can invite your friends to come with you to fight together for the monster. But other friends who doesn't want you to win, they can add more monster to your room. They can grow the monster, or they can just make things very difficult for you. And then, so the fun part about Munchkin is trying to negotiate, bribe people, and to bribe them, treat them drinks so that they won't send a monster to your dungeon or to your room. So I guess the fun part is not the mechanics, because in today's context, Munchkin do have some flaws, and but at the point of time, I guess we have a lot of fun trying to bribe each other and not to play the game. So yeah, that's Munchkin for my second top 5 games.
Okay, so actually, Zio, you didn't come for the last series where we were talking about games of the 90s, and extensively for about 20 minutes we talked about Final Fantasy.
Okay.
There's one special entry in that video where I was actually talking about a specific board game or tabletop element of Final Fantasy VIII, and that was a triple trade. So if you want to check out that video, I'm going to link it somewhere here, so you can catch it out there. Let's move on from 2001 and move into 2002. So for 2002, we have a double entry from Geoffrey. So Geoffrey, you start off your first of 2 picks of 2002.
This 2002 classic is probably one of the most controversial board game because of black slavery, the theme that involved black slavery. Yeah. So this game is called Puerto Rico. All right. It is in fact one of the better strategy games or better economic games I've played. Yeah. So the rules are a little complicated. So to summarize, right? To summarize, players will get to grow crops, will get to trade for different materials for money, right? And players will also have to take turns selecting a roll card from the table. Yeah, so every time a roll is chosen, right? Okay, they will just do the action accordingly. Okay, and throughout the game, the player that earns the most victory points wins. Okay, so I enjoy this game a lot. Yeah, so I would highly recommend people who are not easily offended. Okay, if you just care about the gameplay, this is one of the game that I highly recommend for it's a very good strategic economic game. It's a city building game. It's farming game. All right, so so there are many copies out there, so you can actually get one easily. So so before it is out of print, I would recommend many people to just get a copy. Yeah, so that's my first 2002 pick. Okay, Puerto Rico. Sorry.
My 2002, I have a pick as well, and my 2002 pick is also Puerto Rico. So before that, we move
I nearly picked Puerto Rico, but I thought that one of you will definitely pick Puerto Rico, so I didn't go for Puerto Rico.
Yeah, so
the game is too good, so I'm not even surprised when it gets a crossover.
Yeah, so I mean, for Puerto Rico, like what Geoffrey mentioned, it's more of an action drafting where you draft because you take turn to be the governor, and you can actually choose which role out of 7 or 8, depending on how many players you actually play, and you can actually be that role. And of course, when you actually choose to take a certain role, like buying buildings or going to grow crops or shipping crops, you will always be selecting the game, the turn kind of not just in your own favor, but also king making, in the sense of trying to screw the other players up, because they'll be forced to do certain actions where they don't want to, or they don't have the money to buy buildings, but they are forced to be there, and kind of wasting one turn if they don't buy anything. So to me, for a game that has a hidden victory point, because most games you actually know upfront how much victory points people earn, where I think many of the games starting from the era started having the score tracker around the game board, where people know at any one time who is scoring and what. Puerto Rico still belong in that era where points is sacred and you don't know how much each other score, especially during the phase where you ship your goods out and you start to earn points from there. You get it and it's hidden. So to me, that hidden element made it a bit harder for players to target the one who is leading the game, even though they probably could have guessed who's leading the game. But that hidden element still helped that gameplay to make it a little bit better. Yeah, so like what Geoffrey said, I think the latest version, I don't think they call it deluxe, but it kind of have the 2 expansions with Puerto Rico, so it's not expensive, and before it goes out of print, do get a copy of it, because it's really a solid game. 2 of us actually picked it, and 1 almost picked it. So
I don't mind they do a reprint with better artwork, because right now the artwork is very outdated.
Yeah,
I mean the tiles is still words, and it's like okay, where's the theme, those kind of things.
Yeah, but to be honest, right, I would rather they keep these outdated graphics, because this outdated graphics is actually the representative of the game. Yeah, so if they make it a nicer looking version, right, in fact, I would actually felt that it lost the taste.
Yeah, it adds the kind of the lack of graphic adds to the gameplay. I don't know.
Okay, that's an interesting thing. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, because I think there was a version on Board Game Arena where they have they have some updated looks to it. Right, and with that, I felt that the game looks a bit weird. So yeah, but I mean that was a digital version of the game. So I'm not sure whether the newer prints actually have that, but yeah, if you still can get one of the OG version, the original one, do get a copy of it because the gameplay is really solid. Okay, so Geoffrey, sorry for interrupting your second entry.
Okay, so my second entry for the year 2002 is actually not a game, but it's actually a series. Okay, so I believe the first series, the first game of that series started at 2002. Okay, that is the 10-day series. So the 10 days have so the 10-day series is something similar to mahjong, whereby each players, right? Okay, you place a row of tiles, okay, that consists of the map of a country as well as the mode of transport. Okay, so to summarize, each player will take a tile and replace that tile from the row of tiles you have, okay, or cards. Yeah, okay. So in order to complete the entire row, okay, the players needs to place a more logical way of, for example, traveling from one country to the other country by foot. Okay, so in order to travel by foot, right, these countries have to be located at side by side. Yeah. So if it's travel by vehicle, like car, okay, it has to be around one space away. Okay. If it's travel by airplane, okay, it has to be within the same color. All right. So just form a nice sequence for the row. Okay, then you basically win the game. All right, it's that simple. So for this 10-day series, there's 10 days in Europe, there's 10 days in Africa, there's 10 days in the USA, there's 10 days in Asia, and there's 10 days in the Americas, which means the South American countries. Okay, so if you ask me, right, it is not really the best gameplay I've ever played, but I will recommend this series is because it actually teaches geography better than the game of Risk. Yeah, just in case you have no idea, okay, which part of the US district is, or let's say you're not very sure, which part of Asia, let's say you don't know where's Thailand. Yeah, so this game can teach you more about that. Yeah, so it is highly educational for people who needs to understand geography, right? It is a little similar to mahjong, which in a way it is also quite easy to teach some Asian players, right? And it is also, I mean, the game is, to me, is quite fun. Yeah, so it's actually quite easy to learn as well. Yeah, and I believe there's a reprint, of this 10-day series. So before it's unavailable, I would recommend anyone to try to get all the 10-day series. Yeah, and I believe it's not a very expensive game. Yeah, so why not go for it? Yeah, so that's my second entry, the 10-day series.
Okay, so Geoffrey decides to increase my editing difficulty by putting 5 games in one entry. As he's mentioning about the games, I'm trying to find out all the different graphics for that game, and I realized there's 5 series, and he actually accurately, in the right order of them being published, shared the order. Okay, let's move out of 2002 and we move into 2003. And in 2003, I have the Seoul entry. To me, the game itself that I have selected for 2003 is solid, but it can get more solid if you choose the big box edition, which came out in 2009. So technically speaking, it's still in the same decade that the game is out, and the game is Alhambra.
Okay.
So Alhambra, in the game of Alhambra, you're actually trying to acquire buildings by purchasing them, and you actually use 4 different currency in an open market to purchase. So to me, it was the first time I ever encountered a game where having certain money, accumulating a certain currency out of the 4 may not get you what you want. because buildings are randomly open into different slots, where it could be a rank 12 tower or 13 gardens, but because of where they are going to be placed at, the currency that you have to pay is different. Yeah, so to me, it was a good first exposure. And after you have purchased the tiles, you're supposed to place them along a fountain of Alhambra, where you actually then try to build your city, and at different phases, you will do scoring. So at scoring, you actually will then compare with the other parties. How many ranked towers, gardens, and various buildings that you have, and then you will do scoring. And also one other element that I find actually swings the game here and there, it's on the largest wall around Alhambra, because that is actually an important factor in tile placement, because it actually affects where you can place certain tiles, because you're not supposed to block off the way back to the fountain, so to speak. Yeah. So to me, with the big box edition, it comes with 5 times, I think 5 or 4. So you have over 20 modular expansions that you can add into the game, whichever you prefer. So far, I haven't managed to play all the variety of it, because to be honest, when you have 20 modular expansions, you can actually play, I don't know, there are thousands of ways you can actually play the game. So I think I'm currently only at 30 or 40 ways to play, because I add one expansion and I add those that I really like together in the game. And so far, I think the most I've added into a game is 4 modular expansions. Yeah, because it's so varied and the base gameplay is solid enough that even though you are adding some complexity to it, it's not really taking parts of the game away. Yeah, so to me, my entry in 2003, Alhambra, check it out. And Big Box of Alhambra came out in 2009. So that is the one that I actually would highly recommend. But the base game came out in 2003. So that's why I put my entry in 2003. Okay, so now let's move away from 2003 and we move on to 2004, where there's a sole entry from Matthew.
Yeah, so for my 2004 entry, right, the title is Kakalakam Poker, also known as Cockroach Poker. I believe I talked about it in the top 5 games under 30 minutes. But to keep it short, in the game, basically you got a hand of cards which are full of different types of bucks, and you're just generally trying to give them to your opponents, right? And how you give them is very simple. You declare what the card is, and in the game, because you can lie, so other people either can catch you for telling the truth, catch you for telling a lie, or they can actually inspect and they actually pass it to other people. Of course, if you're the last person, you cannot check, because then you only have to tell the truth or lie. And whoever makes the wrong move will collect the card, you know. So yeah, the usual, if you know the kind of games that I like, is because of the element of the bluffing and deception. Yeah, it makes for a very fun game. Yeah, so that's my 2004 entry, Cockroach Poker.
Okay, because you haven't heard Matthew speak, so we decided to make him speak all at one go. Next, we are moving on to 2005. And 2005, there is also a sole entry from Matthew.
Yeah.
Over to you again.
Thank you. So, my 2005 entry, the title of the game is called Cash and Guns. So, in this game, we all play as gangsters, you know, who just robbed the bank. But, you know, due to greed, you know, we decided to actually keep more of the money for ourselves itself, splitting evenly. So, of course, the objective of the game is to have the most amount of money. And what happens in the game is that each player has a gun. They choose to either load it with blanks or with actual ammunition, and they will point at other opponents, right? And because in the game you only have 3 lives, if you are being shot 3 times, no. If you lose 3 health, then you're out of the game, right? So once everybody have their guns pointed at each other, players can decide to either to withdraw from, you know, taking the money. And basically those who are not injured, or those who are not chicken, you know, by leaving, you know, they can actually distribute the money evenly from the prize pool. And basically after 8 rounds, whoever has the most money wins. Again, my kind of game, quite mind-gaming, where you can actually try to, bluff people or into thinking that, hey, actually, I've got the bullet, you better back down, So yeah, that's Cash and Guns 2005.
So okay, we'll move on from 2005, and for some reason, none of us have an entry for 2006. I'm not sure what happened in 2006. There's a blackout in that year, but we'll move on to 2007. And as promised, because Matthew haven't spoken in the start, you will hear again from him. He has a sole entry for 2007. So Matthew, over to you for a third time.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so for 2007, the title of the game is Cash and Guns Live. So this is I can't remember what's the minimum play count, but it's maybe between 8 to 20 players. Yeah. So think Cash and Guns, but except that is up to 20 players. Yeah, and generally players will play in groups. And so how the game works is that everybody in the group, they'll be given cards, and the different type of cards will feature different type of weapons. And so in the game, once you have your card, you will basically go around finding your targets, and then once, like, I don't know, maybe a couple of seconds, then when you have to decide who you want to go after, right? So there are generally 3 kinds of weapons. You have the shotgun, you have the you have the quick pistol, and you have the dual pistols. So shotgun basically allows you to shoot people in the area. Dual pistols allows you to shoot 2 people at one time, and the quick pistols allows you to shoot first. So again, the same mechanics is that the quick pistol will go first. Whoever is wounded, then they're out lah for the round. Then followed by dual pistols, and then followed by the shotgun. Of course, there are also other type of weapons. So from what I recall, there's also the grenade. There's also the knife, where you can actually backstab other people. And I can't remember the last one. But generally, these 3 other weapons, you can actually pose as any of the first 3 that I've mentioned before. So basically, after all the resolutions for these different type of weapons, same thing like Cash and Guns, whoever's alive, they get to take evenly distribute the money, and basically whichever team earns the most wins the game. So that is Cash and Guns Live for 2007. 2007. Yeah.
Okay, just in case you don't have enough of Cash and Guns, Matthew give you 2 different entries, which essentially are 2 different games with fairly different gameplay. So
yes,
we will take them as 2 different entries. And of course, with that, we are moving into the popular year, because in 2008, there are many entries. Every one of us actually have an entry in 2008. I think that's the only year we all pick a game. Seems like it's the year where all good games come together and fight it out to be the best game. So because everyone have an entry, so I will let Geoffrey share his first. So Geoffrey, on to you.
Alright, so my 2008 entry is one of my favorite games of all time. That is Le Havre, which I've actually mentioned in another video. So this game consists of 2 parts. Okay, first you distribute goods to spaces, then you perform an action. Okay, so this game is a city building game. It's an economic game. It's a worker placement game. All right, and so basically this game allows players to, in a way, invest in buildings as well as to build various buildings as well. And after 7 rounds, okay, players who have the most money, I can't remember, is it money or points? Most money or points wins the game. Yeah. So it's kind of it's also kind of complicated to explain the rules. Yeah. So so it's definitely one of my favorite strategic worker placement games. Yeah, and in fact, I will actually review this as better than Agricola. Yeah. So so I believe this game is going to be out of print soon. So so get one, if you have a chance. Yeah. So that is my 2008 pick, Le Havre.
I agree on you that it's better than Agricola.
Yeah, and I think we should start charging all these old game publishers for some referral, because we are asking everyone to buy all these games before they literally go off.
Maybe you go and talk to them and see whether got any affiliate marketing fee.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps publishers, since these games are good games, keep printing them so that future generation of gamers get to see these games too. Because I'm seeing a lot of older games that are actually being rebranded, reskinned with updated graphics and relaunching on Kickstarter. So maybe some of the games that we are mentioning here, and if you are a publisher, you could probably consider if this game was actually in your repertoire at the time and you still have the kind of like the licensing IP to it. Maybe it's time to work on it again and make newer gamers get excited over some of these games again. Okay, so with that said, we are going to move on to a double entry from Matthew, but obviously at any time if any one of us have a crossover, we will interrupt him. So Matthew, over to your first game of 2008.
Alright, so my first game for 2008 is called Pack and Stack. So it's it's actually a cute game. It's not my kind of bluffing and deception-ish kind of game, but it's personally also one of my favorite dexterity-based games, right? So in the game, basically you have dice where you throw and you'll be given different size blocks, right? So everybody has different number of blocks, different sizes, and everybody will have a card that determines the height and the shape of the truck in which they are supposed to load their goods inside. So everybody's cards are all face down at the start, and at goal, what happens is that everybody will flip their card, and everybody needs to look out for which of the other trucks, not your own, do you think you can actually fit most of your goods inside, right? And once you have selected that card, you basically slowly, take your time to figure out how to load your goods. Now, any space that is in excess or any goods that are in excess of the truck, you will then deduct points. So basically, if I'm correct, at the start you have like 75 points, and basically players will all keep losing points until one player reaches 0 or less. Then whoever has the most points at the end of that round wins. So Pack and Stack, for 2008.
Yeah. So should we move on to Matthew's other pick for 2008?
Sure. So the other game for 2008 is actually called Say Anything. So in this game, it's sort of like a trivia game, where let's say there's a judge and the rest of players are participants. So the judge, what he does is he picks up a card, it actually asks some questions. You get to choose out of the questions inside to ask everybody else. So maybe example could be like, hey, in this room, who's the most handsome guy? So each participant will then write down the answer. So maybe Zio could write his own name, Geoffrey could write his own name, and then Sebastian write his own name, right? And everybody all shows the answer. So the next thing that happens is that after everybody has written down their answers, everybody will decide which answer I will most likely pick. And yet at the same time, I will have to secretly use a dial to actually indicate which I feel is the most correct answer for me. And basically once everybody is done, we'll all review the answers. Whoever wrote the answer as the same as the one they have chosen will get points. People who choose the correct answer will also get points, and basically whoever has the most number of points wins the game. So that is Say Anything. Personally, my most favorite trivia game.
Say Anything is a game that actually deserves to be in this top 5. It's a good pick.
I mean, for this kind of game, it could very easily fall into the if Say Anything was designed in 2018, so to speak, it wouldn't have that secret element of the DAO, and it would just become a party game where people just pick the best response that other people like, because that's the game of the 2010s or 2015 onwards, where games like CAH and games of that kind of element came out. But then it still retains that so-called a structured manner in terms of scoring works, rather than just subjective opinion on which answer you like better. So yeah, that's the thing I actually like about Say Anything. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to my pick for 2008. So my pick for 2008 is the game where I would deem as someone like the godfather of worker placement. If you want to actually find a game to describe worker placement, this is the game. Okay, and we have to go back all the way to the Stone Age to find the game, because the game name is called Stone Age. So in Stone Age, you actually play different roles. Your meeples will play different roles. They will have roles like hunter, collector, farmer, toolmaker, or what we call the baby maker, because that is literally a role where you get to increase your population of workers. So, in the game, you are actually trying to manage the amount of wood, stone, gold, maybe they call it rock or stone, and gold, and of course the food to feed the growing population that you're having. And of course, with that, you're also trying to win points with the various cards that you can actually get. And to me, it was one of the first few encounters I actually had with worker placement that directly affected, or it directly could interrupt what other people could play. Because for worker placement games, one of the key factors is the lack of locations, where it's not like the kind of game where if there's a 4-player game, player 1 takes the action, and then player 2, player 3, player 4, who are not familiar with the game, copies player 1's action, because you just can't. Because that location, or by the time it's the third player's turn, that location is out of pick, because people will have placed their meeple in that location, blocking it essentially to other players. So to me, that was my first few encounters with such a game, where I was like thinking, then what should I do? So players literally had to plan what they want to do in case they kind of start ranking in their mind. Okay, my first choice is this, my second choice is this, and then if by my turn I actually don't get to play in this location, so what should I do? Yeah, so to me, as a worker placement game, I think even till today, it's very solid. And I think recently they came out with somewhat like a newer edition where there's like a winter mode. I haven't played that before, but coming back and just talking about the original game of Stone Age, I would highly recommend it if you are looking for a simple yet solid worker placement game.
So you took one of my top 5.
Did I?
Yeah.
What's over?
Yeah, you took my top 5 for the workers placement game in my arsenal. So good job.
You want to elaborate more on why you?
I like the dice throwing. I thought because a lot of the workers placement game is quite dull, you just plays, but the dice element in the Stone Age adds a bit of luck element that is actually quite creates the tension. So I mean, one thing I complain about workers placement game is sometimes the lack of tension. You do your own thing. They always say multiplayer solitaire. So I think the Stone Age in a way, because then there are certain cards whereby you have to collaborate with people for the dice throws kind of things, certain cards. So it makes the game much more interactive than the standard workers placement game. Yeah, so I love the dice part, the dice manipulation and dice part.
Yeah, that probably is something I missed out in highlighting. And the original version of the game came with a very high quality leather. I'm not sure whether it is real leather, but leather-like dice cup. But I think even I don't know if you even go to BGG to read the review, some of them are still talking about that cup.
I have that. Yeah. my storage have that.
Yeah, so I mean that was quite an important tool within the game. I mean, sometimes there are some components that people still remember after 12 years. Just because it was made of a certain quality. So that dice cup is something that, if you talk to another person who have played Stone Age or who have the game Stone Age, they know what you're talking about. It's just that specific component that people still remember till now. Yeah. Okay, so with that, Zio, I think you have another entry for 2008.
Yes, my next entry is Race for the Galaxy. Okay, so I think it's a pretty hot game at the point of time. They have, I don't know, hundreds of expansions. I didn't really get all the expansions. Yeah, but I basically play a lot of the base game. I didn't play this game until the last few years. It's actually bought by my fiance. So she said that, oh, she's very good at Race for Galaxy, so she wanted to challenge me. I said, okay, why is this game? So it's actually something like action selection game. So somewhat similar with Puerto Rico and Citadel in a way. So you just select action, then you play style, then you do a thing. So after I learned the game, I managed to beat her lah. Okay, so that's another story. Okay, for another day. But yeah, so I guess what is interesting about the game is how the way that they design the UX UI, the elegant way of how they can design a card game with so much different ways of strategy, just placing them in a list of icons on the side. The thing. So basically, the game, for those who are not aware, is basically a space game whereby you race to colonize the colony, and then there you can develop technology. You can develop. You can become a warlike race and try to conquer people, or you can just try to be very nice and try to trade your way through, produce goods, all these kind of things. So in a typical, this is something like a civilization game whereby you decide to fight somebody, or you try to build a city, to build something, or you try to build your culture, this kind of thing. But most civilization game is very heavy, takes a long time, and you takes a long time to build your engine, on this kind of thing. Whereas what I like about Race for Galaxy is that it is a civilization game being condensed in a very short card game, which the complexity of engine building and a civilization game, yet without that long time, the long playing time, the long rules, the intricacy between the interface. So what I like the game is the elegance of how the game has been being designed. Yeah, so that's Race to Galaxy.
With the end of 2008, that will also come to the end of Matthew sharing, because he has shared all 5 of his games. So moving on to 2009, we are left with Geoffrey, myself, and Zio. So, Geoffrey, why don't you take the lead to talk about your entry for 2009?
Okay, my 2009 is one of the board games where I felt that it has one of the most interesting themes ever. Okay, so this game is, when you look at the board with ships, with arms, with tanks, okay, it looks like a war game. Okay, you get to conquer the world. All right, there are 6 superpowers: the US, Europe, Russia, China, India, Brazil. Okay, so you get to be politicians. Okay, you gain power to conquer many parts of the world. But, however, the objective of this game is to earn money. So your role, right, is not being a powerful politician, but it's more of an investor trying to earn profits from the outcome of the war. And that game is called Imperial 2030. Yeah, so I believe this game is already out of print. Right now online, it can be sold on, I mean, it can be bought online, yeah, but do get a copy if possible. Yeah, so like I said, okay, this game is still a lot more complicated to explain. Yeah, so so like I said, okay, the theme is interesting. Okay, you basically profit.
I can bet with you cannot beat my 2019 game. Mine is more weird than yours. If you can, if I tell you later, then you see whether mine is more weird than yours or yours is more weird.
Fine, no worries. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So it's to me the theme is very interesting, and so it's basically a combination of risk and with investment, with ownership theories, with stock holding mechanism. Yeah. So it's all about money. You just profit in the war. Okay?
Looks like an industrial revolution.
So much, you can earn so much from all the so-called freedom. Yeah. All the freedom of weapons. Yeah. Okay. So that is my 2009 pick, Imperial 2030.
Okay, then next I'll move on to my final pick, which is my pick for 2009. Technically, this game came out in 2008, but the only reason why I'm putting it in 2009 is because I don't own a copy of the 2008 made version of the game, and well, to me, the gameplay from where I actually picked it up from was solid enough that even though I haven't played the base, so-called the base game of it, doesn't really matter. So the game that I'm going to pick is Dominion Intrigue, because it came out in 2009. So Dominion as a game, well, it's a very solid deck builder, and for you to explain to everyone who is playing the game for the first time, people always struggle to explain, mainly in a deck builder, what a turn sounds like. But in this game, it's literally A, B, C. Action, you buy a card, and then you clean up. So that's what you do in a turn in Dominion, and the game ends when 4 piles of your supply market pile ends, or the largest scoring victory point card runs out. That triggers the end of the game. So to me, it's a very solid deck builder, and it has continued for many years. Up to today, there are still expansions being printed. I think they are on their 13th or their 14th expansion. I lost count, even though I do own quite a number of their expansions. And every expansion actually adds something different to the game, where you actually can see that there are different themes that they add in. And to me, some of those newer themes actually became mainstays, like the event cards and the landmark cards. I will actually play them regardless what version I play. Even if I'm playing the very basic Intrigue, I feel that those cards actually would add some value into the original gameplay, because, well, it probably dials back to my original knowledge of card games from Magic the Gathering and Raw Deal, where these cards feel like your pre-match stipulation. So it kind of changed the gameplay quite a bit in the way I like it. So to me, my pick would be Dominion Intrigue. And if you haven't watched our top 5 expansion videos, I'm going to put the link up here so you can check it out, because Dominion is also a pick that was selected by myself to talk about some of the expansions. Yep, and with that, I'll pass on to Zio to introduce his last weird team game that he mentioned.
I nearly picked Dominion until I realized I got a better deck building game that I like. Okay, so you're trying to guess. It's a deck building game. It's from Japan. It's very like Dominion. Anybody can guess?
I know the answer, so I can't speak. But then when I was researching on this game, when I saw Zio's entry, the first thing that popped out is this game plays like Dominion, but adds some other elements to it.
Yeah,
so
correct.
I think that's what Zio is alluding to when he says he has a better deck building game than Dominion.
The original Dominion, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this what?
Not my star, right?
No, is this game?
Is it Machikoro?
No, it's Tento Koro. That's correct.
Eh? Oh.
It's called Tento Koro.
Oh, Tento Kure.
Yeah, Tento Kure, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's actually a Japanese game about how do you train your mate. So I thought that, as a personal otaku, I need to find the most otaku-ness of the game out there to showcase. So yes, so it talks about mate culture in Japan. So in this case, in Dominion, you basically hire armies, get location, those kind of thing, deck building. So over here, you're basically hiring mates to help you look after your mansion. So it is very anime-ish for those people who like Akiba, otaku thing. They look at this game. It's the first thing is, oh, this is so representative of the Jap mate culture, and they almost took the entire Dominion mechanics and they changed a bit, and then they published and reskin it into a mid game. So it is a cult hit. I mean, it's not a very mainstream hit in US or in other parts of the world, but it has a certain cult holding, because I think a lot of people are very weird about why we want to play a mid game, this kind of thing. So so that's Tento Koro, and they come up with a lot of expansion. So like any other Japanese game, so they come out with different locations, they come out with summer editions, they come out with different kind of costume for mates, all these kind of things. So in a way, they also have quite a number of expansion, which I didn't go and collect them all because I think I'm happy with the base game. And so I think for any of my friends who are big fans of anime and manga culture, and I want to introduce a anime game to them that speaks to them, their make culture. I will introduce Tentacruel to them. But I think right now there's a lot more games from Japan from Jet Anime Games. They have those with the more modern board games. So I think that is one of the oldest game from Jet Anime that they actually took from Japan to literally translate to English. So yeah, that's Tentacruel.
Yeah, I played a game once. Actually, I think this game is available in Singapore. So if I'm not wrong, right, one of the trading card game store in Singapore is also selling Tentacruel.
Yeah.
Yeah, can't remember which one, but I remember there are some people playing that game in those trading card game stores where they play Magic Garden, etc. Yeah, so it is actually available in Singapore. Yeah, so if you're interested, you can actually get one. Yeah, in Singapore lah. Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm actually very glad to hear Zio recommending this game because try as I may, I was trying to look for Asian games to kind of share with people, but to be honest, in the 2000 to 2009 period, there wasn't much notable Asian games that I can personally say that I played and I enjoyed. So that's why when I saw Zio's entry for his especially the very last entry, it kind of sparks what you probably will see in our next few videos, because that's where Asian games kind of pick up, and that's where you will see, or you probably will hear from some of us in the following part of this series, where we actually do have Asian games to talk about, because finally Asia has caught up in playing board games or designing board games, whereas in the earlier parts of the decades that we mentioned, Asian haven't really kind of made its stand into games. I think purely it comes from the fact that Asians actually enjoy playing certain games over and over again, like our mahjong and for Go and for some part
Chinese chess,
chess, and so there were some games that were heavily overplayed, but even then there were still people playing it. And then probably it also comes down to an economic situation where Asia hasn't really caught up with the rest of the world in that period, in the 1990s and 2000, where we are mentioning, we are still trying to catch up with the rest of the world. And very evidently, since 2008, where there was the Olympics in China, Beijing, that's where economy in Asia picked up, and that's why you start to see more and more people entering board game to be a designer or to be part of this industry, especially in Asia. Yeah.
I guess because there's no more work-time balance when the country is developed, so you have more time to spend. Because last time when you work almost 5.5 days a week, literally. Yeah, so it's only like in recent last 10 years we see more work-life balance, and then people can start to play more games.
That's why people like us now, we can even do this after the end of a working day, where we can sit together and be even discussing about games, where I think 10-15 years ago this will be unheard of, not just from a technology standpoint, but just from the fact that we work late hours. And I think some parts of the world, especially working late hours, is still a norm, especially in countries like Japan, Korea. The culture is still as such. Yeah.
Singapore is still one of the hardest working people in the world. You look at the longest hour work.
That's why I only quoted those countries that are harder working than us.
we still have the shortest number of holidays in Asia, I think. I think Malaysia has double the number of public holidays than us.
Yeah. With that said, we are still trying to find balance in different ways.
True.
So, okay, anybody want to share anything more about this time period? How you find the games in this period? Was it a struggle to come up with the games? I think Geoffrey had a lot of difficulties trying to concise 5 games. He wanted to, even if I given him top 10, it wasn't enough for him actually. So Geoffrey, why don't you share your 7 other games that didn't make the list?
Okay, let me see if I can remember, because I actually closed off some of the tabs. Yeah. Okay. So let me try to remember a few shout outs. Okay. So one I actually consider is Small World. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And yeah. So the interesting factor about Small World is you can get to play different races. Okay, and then earn points when they extinct. Yeah. So my problem is that the game is actually the team, which is you only score points when they extinct after you conquer certain areas. So in a way that it's kind of weird. Yeah, I mean, but if you ignore team, right, the gameplay wise, it is quite an interesting game. Yeah, I'm also considering Say Anything. Yeah, which is Matthew has already included that. So which I mentioned that it is well deserving up there. Okay, the reason why it's not part of the top five is because I would like to give the chance to some other games because I also mentioned Say Anything in another video. Yeah. I have also considered this very old year 2000 game called The Princess of Florence. Yeah, okay. So if you know this game called Baron Park, yeah, it actually some of the gameplay actually got inspired by this game called Princess of Florence. It is actually like a Tetris tile laying game. Okay, it is actually a heavier version of it. Yeah. So Baron Park is actually a simpler version. Yeah, to summarize. And what else did I include? Yeah, sorry, I think I kind of need some refresher. St. Petersburg, I do consider that game. Other than that, excuse me. I also consider Notre Dame. Yeah, so which is why before I come up with the top five, I actually have around 12 games. Yeah, so not sure if I mentioned all the 12. Yeah, so so it actually took me quite a while. In fact, it took me like the very last minute to come up with this top five. That's why I decided to pick my top five. Yeah, actually it's more like my recommended five. Yeah, so I actually chose my 5 games, right? Okay, based on how I feel that people should actually try to collect them before they're out of print.
Yeah. I see that Geoffrey goes towards heavier side of the games.
Yeah lah. So that's my personal preference.
Yeah. You never name a Twilight Struggle or Twilight Imperium. I thought you might go for that.
Twilight Imperium, okay lah. Twilight Imperium, is a good game, but if you ask me, right, I believe it's not a game for everyone.
True.
Yeah. In which, right, therefore I didn't recommend Demercia. Not sure if it's a game about political elections in parliament. Yeah. So I like that game a lot, but I didn't recommend it. Right, it's because it's a heavy game and the rules are way complicated for most board gamers in Asia. Yeah. So
and speaking, Demercia came out in the 80s.
Is it?
Yeah, first print was in 1986.
Okay. Because I
you wouldn't have qualified anyway.
Qualified anyway. Okay. Because I thought it kind of maybe I thought of the reprinted version.
Actually, yeah, Twilight Imperium also not qualified because that's the 3rd edition.
Okay.
Yeah. Twilight Struggle that was I think 2005 where it was launched. And
yeah.
Kind of I think it's the highest ranking DGG game in this decade when I was.
I think they were holding the top 10 for like close to 10 years before. before all the Gloomhavens came.
When you can be in top 10 for 10 years, you must be a game that has done something right.
Yeah. So basically, that game, many things done right. Yeah, just that whenever I host that game or try to teach that game, right, it is actually quite a little struggle.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So if we are recommending games for Singaporeans or Asian audience, right, I think that game are probably not a good gateway game to introduce to them. They all run away from board games. I mean, that's what happened to one of my Malaysia partners. So in Malaysia, we have a partner to distribute our games over in Malaysia. Then I introduced some board game folks to him. And then you know what's the first game they made him play? They made him play Twilight Struggle. Then they spent the entire night playing. Then after that, they come out and say, "Oh, Gio, I don't want to sell board games anymore. It's very exhausting. How to teach like that?" Then I said, "No, what did they make you play? Twilight Struggle." Then I said, "Why did they make you play Twilight Struggle?" So they're saying that no, don't worry, we will induct him into the world of board game. After that's okay. Don't worry. I know you're traumatized. Let me show you some other.
Like giving him one of the longest introduction to a game before a
You
game.
say that, don't worry, we'll take care of him. We'll show him some of the best board game ever. Then they show him Twilight Struggle. I mean, technically it's true lah. Technically it's true. It's one of the best board games ever.
I was actually surprised. I was actually surprised nobody picked Ticket to Ride because the popularity. Okay, maybe because it's already that popular. But
I don't mind Ticket. I was considering Ticket to Ride Europe because I feel the original Ticket to Ride is too simple for me. I was considering Europe, but I look at my other games. I think I'll prefer. I mean, if I want to sell, I'll sell Ticket to Ride Europe first, lah. So I look at the games. Okay, I have all this. Which one will I sell first?
I mean, to me, Ticket to Ride is as a game. It also kind of allows you to make certain unique decisions because you can choose to take cards face up or you can choose to take a blank card, and you also have to consider your certain routes because I think for a lot of games of that era, for you to get to one thing, right, there's only one way. But Ticket to Ride is one of the first few games that show you even if someone blocks you off, someone plays in a kingmaker way, you could still take an alternate route and in turn also win the longest route in the game. So it kind of adds to a different element. Yeah, it was. I was very close to adding that. It was for me. It was between that and if I'm not mistaken, that and Stone Age. So perhaps I should have talked about that because Stone Age was going to be mentioned anyway. But I mean, to me, when I put the two games together, I just asked myself when I was creating my list, what game do I want to play now? I picked Stone Age over Ticket to Ride at that point. So that was how I actually eliminated some of my choices. Yeah. Yep. So Matthew, for most of your games, other than Cash and Guns, which I think a lot of viewers will probably remember from you because you spoke about it for, 4 minutes because you had two back-to-back Cash and Guns. Were there any games that you actually had to cut out?
Probably there were a few, but I don't know. Probably they were too insignificant for me to remember. So that's how I ended up with my top 5. Yeah.
Yes.
These really jumped at, these 5 games really jumped at me. The rest were like, meh. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one other one that I wanted to put in. It's actually a game in my background. You can see here. I wanted to put in Quirker for abstract game because it came out.
Quirker,
yeah. It's a game that is. I think if your partner had been introduced to Quirker instead of Twilight Struggle, he will be very interested to continue selling board games because of the simple rules. I think in the time that they actually take to teach him part of Twilight Struggle, he would have completed the whole game of Quirker.
I agree.
Yeah, so that was one of the games that I also cut out. Actually, the reason for me to cut out Quirker was purely because I played once. I think I played it twice, and it actually stick on with me. And I always wanted to buy a copy of it, but then they actually came out with very many different versions of it. And now I think the newer version just come in back instead of you having the box. And I prefer to have the box, but I can't find an edition for it. So yeah, as an abstract game with no theme, I think sometimes solid gameplay don't really need theme. That's why when I was describing Dominion, I didn't even talk about the theme. I just talked about what you do in the game. Yeah, so we've come to the end of the video. Do tell us in the comments below what are some games that you play in the decade of 2000 to 2009. Our next entry will be on top 5 games of the first half of 2010, because I think if I were to ask all these gentlemen to actually list down their top 5 games of the 2010s, they'll all look at me with murderous intent just purely because, like I mentioned, even on BGG Top 100, 85 of those games currently in the top 100 are games from 2010 onwards. So it wouldn't be very fair to put in so many games, possible games to talk about just in and concise it to 5. So we've decided to split the 2010s into 2 segments. So please look forward to that. And of course, if you enjoy videos like this top 5 series, do comment below to share what are some other top 5 series you would like us to do. And of course, if you do like our videos, please do give it a like, share with your friends, subscribe below. The button is below, and of course on the bottom right hand corner of your screen, there's a small subscribe button that you can click and you can subscribe. And with your subscription, what do you get? You actually get many videos of board games that will come your way from the perspective of Singaporeans, sharing with you what are some of the games that we enjoy, and also what are some of the newer games out there, as well as what are some of the older games that we have enjoyed playing before. So do click on the notification bell so you get our latest video as soon as they're out. More videos are at the site, and we'll see you for the next one. Thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye.